So I have no idea. I've never run a stock or any class in NHRA legal competition. I'm just, at best, I'm a bracket racer, right? And not very good at that either, by the way. So shock of all shocks, I win first round. I was stunned. And I just later go, what do I do now?
Before wind lights past the finish line. Right. I had to wait till a time slip booth to go.
Yeah, had no idea. She goes, park over there. Thank you. So what happens now? He says, oh, see those guys coming? Yeah. They're walking this way with their little ink pen thing, the little matte wax thing to set you up, and they're going to pick out the cars that are going into the just a few times, and they're going to send you to the teardown barn. Okay. So I said, so is there a criteria? He goes, oh yeah, there's 3. I said, really? He goes, yeah. So first criteria is if you go way under your index. Uh-oh.
Whoopsie.
Because I'm like 7/10 under. I said, and number 2, and he goes, number 2, if they've never seen you before.
Whoopsie.
Whoopso. So then I said, so what's number 3? He goes, if you're a car guy, or if you're a magazine guy. Hey, welcome to Car Guy Confessions, brought to you by ARP. I'm Jeff Smith. This is my car buddy Cam Benty and car builder Steve Strope, and we're going to tell you some stories. Welcome to Car Guy Confessions with Jeff Smith, brought to you by ARP. It's my friend Cam Benty. We have a special guest star today.
Oh, please.
My buddy Kevin McClelland. We go back a long ways. And as bad as I am about stories, this is going to be a lot of fun because just to put this in perspective, yes, this is going to take a while, but it's going to be really entertaining.
Yes.
So first of all, we got to mention the Pops, right?
Yep.
How's he doing?
He's doing well.
Okay,
Thanks.
Dave McClelland, the voice. Well, we can't really
Of
say the
NHRA.
voice of.
You can.
Okay, that's
Over
okay.
40 years,
all right,
he was
all right.
the voice of NHRA.
Voice of NHRA.
I give him the award anyway.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
And tell him to fire me or come get me or put me in jail. I really don't care.
So that's his dad. Pops is a super guy. Yep. So he's doing okay?
Yes, he's
good.
doing good.
I worked with him at Argus. That was one of the first people that I met when I went to Argus. With George Elliott and the whole group. And that's actually where I met my wife. She actually worked for him on Chevy
Super Chevy.
Oh gosh.
So that was, I think, that I recall the first time I ran across you was at a Super Chevy show with your 57 at OCIR.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That was a million years ago.
Yeah.
So where shall we start? Where should we? I mean, we have 100 stories. So pick one.
That's fun that involves all 3 of us,
Excellent.
which is pretty fun. Which was the situation surrounding the Y stock Eliminator at the 1983 Winter Nationals.
So.
Sounds about right.
So we have
somewhere in there.
So we have to set the story up.
Yes.
I was the new guy at Carcraft magazine. Plymouth, you were the editor of Popular Hot Rodding, but I was just a staffer on staff, and
I had McClelland Automotive.
You had McClelland Automotive,
what is that?
and
Montrose.
Montrose, out there somewhere.
Yes.
So Chrysler gave us this car and was going to buy a lot of ads. So this little tiny, you can't really say sports car, 2.2 liter, 4-cylinder, carbureted, 4-speed, front wheel drive. It was like the sporty version of a K car, if that's possible. Sporty, with quotes on it, right? So I'm dinking around with this thing, and we're taking a drag strip, beating the snot out of it, put a header on it, but otherwise left it alone, and it get down into the 15s. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, NHRA says, we're going to create a front wheel drive class, X, Y, and Z. Stock Eliminator. So I called Chrysler and said, can I enter your car at the Winter Nationals? And they went, I fully expected them to go, absolutely not, you can't do that. And they went, yes, please.
No, that sounds like Mopar.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Little did you know they were doing the same thing with us.
Well, then they called you immediately after I got the phone. They called you and gave you a Dodge.
That's right.
So I had this Plymouth Turismo, and they have the Dodge Charger.
Kind of a Charger.
I'm beating the snot out of this thing. It's got a header on it, and we're getting it down to the point where it's running in the 15s. And so the index was 1625, and we were running, I think, 1540s. 1550s, so we're like 8/10 under the index, right?
You were testing at OCR.
At OCIR, Orange County International Raceway.
And that's where I saw
which
you
is,
guys.
RIP, it's gone.
Right.
And having a good time. So I'm down there at the Stock and Super Stock show the weekend before the Winter Nationals, running my car. Yep. And I hope I get his name right. Chuck Norton. Norton and Winchester, they ran an F-Stock automatic Camaro. Okay. And it turned out I lined up against him on Saturday night at night, and I have like a 5-second head start on him. And he told me later, he says, it looked like you went down the end of the track, turned off and was coming back the return road when he finally his light came out. And I lost because I was slow and everything else. So I then met him
at the Winter Nationals? Or
no, that was the weekend before.
That was the weekend before.
Test weekend before.
Because,
so unbeknownst to me, these guys are building a car. And
yes. Well, this is where Kevin comes into the deal, because it was a deal where they gave us a bunch of parts. And I remember specifically there was a header and there was another computer box and there were a few other things, but I didn't have a place to work on it, and I really didn't know what I was doing. And I was all alone. Pete Pasteur was on the staff. Pete has passed since, and so I'm sorry to bring his name up as as his passing. But the bottom line was we had this car and we had like a week, and it was like, where are we going to put the parts on? Your dad comes to me, he goes, well, Kevin has a shop in Montrose, so you can use the shop over there. So I remember spending about a day. It was one of those deals where you just didn't have space for much of anything. And the header had, of course, they put super long studs on it, and I've got an end wrench, a 10-millimeter end wrench, and I got a quarter turn each time. Oh, it was ridiculous. So I ended up putting the header on it, and that was where I learned that you can take off the head, the fuel system, and the intake and the header all at once. You just unbolt the head and it pops off, which is what we will get to in the meantime. But I spent the day at Kevin's shop with an end wrench trying to put a header on, which I did ultimately, and there were other things that we looked at, because I had the head. You never took the head off until it got. So I took the head off.
Not until Pomona.
That's right.
We'll get there.
But the capper was I had the head off during in the interim, and I was starting to do the little cleanup. The little stuff you can do for stock eliminator, which is not very much. You can only go
not
in
back
about,
then.
You can go in about you can go in about an inch. I think that was the deal. But this brings up another guy that we know, Dean Dodge, who was like the little was like the little devil on my shoulder. It was not his fault. It was all my fault. I did all the act was mine. But I remember him saying, "Well, why don't you clean up the head, because it looked so bad." I mean, the parting lines and all the other stuff that was in there.
meaning deck the head.
No, not deck the head. Clean the ports.
Oh, okay.
Clean the ports up.
So port it.
So the deal was
basically the bowls.
Yeah,
Clean the bowls up.
Clean everything, and I cleaned everything.
No, you couldn't.
You can't touch those things.
Kind of cleaned and jerked this one. But anyway, so the bottom line is, so he says to me, the capper was, I said, "Oh, I don't want to do too much." He goes, "What do you think? You're going to win?" At which point I decided to hog as much crap as I could. It was completely illegal, but that was the funny part of the deal.
So they show up at the Winter Nationals.
But we showed up the week before, and you told us how to drive it.
Yes.
Because we had no seat of the pants deal. So anyway.
Because I didn't expect them to go very fast. And they immediately go out and go what? Like 2/10 quicker than I did?
We were in terms of the qualifying at the Winter Nationals, we were 2/10 faster.
They were number one qualifier.
Yes.
I was number two. And Cal and Marianne Method.
Oh gosh.
They for years and years ran those wagons and the 58 Chevys and all this weird stuff. Well, this year they decided to go for the championship and built a new car. I think it was a C-stock automatic Camaro. Early Camaro. And so we're in the pits, and we're number one, number two qualifier, and somebody walks up to me, and they said, "You know Cal and Marianne Method?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, stay away from them." And I said, "Why?" She said, "Because Marianne will probably rip your head off, because they came here to be number one qualifier, and you idiots have blown the whole deal for them.
They were like 6 to 7 tenths under,
right?
Yeah,
and
which is a lot.
One quick story: Joe Treat. Remember that name? Mustang guy, right?
Yes.
He had like, I don't know, a D-stock automatic Mustang. I'm in staging to go through entries and all this other stuff, so we're sitting in line together, and he's just ripping me. He says, "Why are you doing this? This is just not about stock eliminator and everything else." And I said, "Let me ask you a question."
Car?
Yeah. I said, "Let me ask you a question. Why did you pick this class, whatever class he was in?" He said, because it was a little bit soft." I answered his own question. He goes, "Well, of course." I said, "What do you think I'm doing? This thing's 3/4 of a second soft. I'd be an idiot not to enter the car. So now you're telling me that I'm just screwing everything up, when in reality somebody in the stands can go, 'Well, I could do that. I've got one of those cars.' That's the whole point of stock eliminator." He turned around and walked away. So anyway, now we fast.
logically.
Yes, which is, of course, don't confuse you with the facts.
Not with a racer.
No. So now we show up at the Winter Nationals, and first round, right? Which is Saturday.
Saturday. Was Saturday.
Back then, it was maybe on Friday afternoon.
Okay.
You know, because with how many cars, the Winter Nationals was always Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's
Right.
abbreviated now.
Right.
But yeah.
So I have no idea. I've never run stock or any class in NHRA legal competition. I'm just, at best, I'm a bracket racer, right? And not very good at that either, by the way. So we show up. It's like and so I'm trying to get in the gate with my car, and all 4 Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all 4 days, the same guard said, "You can't bring that car in here." I said, "I was here yesterday, with this car, and you told me you couldn't get in then." And it would take me 10 minutes to get. And there's a line behind us trying to get in, and finally, he just forced him to let me in.
Because he thought you were a spectator?
Yeah, look at the number. Stock eliminator. Why stock?
Yeah.
Why not? Right, exactly. That's what we really wanted to say. So anyway, get there, first round, and I'm running an F stock Fairlane.
Okay.
And shock of all shocks, I win first round. Yeah. It's like, how did that happen? I think the guy broke out. That's what happened. He just went. He's 3/4 of a mile ahead of me, so he's got just wah, and then broke out. So I pull her, and the other half it.
I'm in line, and in qualifying, the situation was I was taking it easy on the deal, and George Elliott came over, and he saw you ahead of me, and he goes, I thought you said this car was fast, and I said, "Well, that's pretty.
There was no competition.
That's kind of relative.
No,
there was
between PHR and Hot Rod or
No,
Parkraft.
no.
Argus and Peterson, no,
not at all.
Completely
So I
cutthroat.
leaned on it, and that's when I ended up like two tenths faster than you.
Right.
But then, so now we're in the qualifying, or now we're in the first round, and it was so funny because Paul Rossi, Paul Rossi.
Yeah.
Paul Rossi comes up and he looks at me and he goes, "When you get done with this line, when this round is over, just go right to the teardown barn. Don't stop anywhere. Just go to the teardown barn."
Because
I said,
collect $200.
Right.
That's
so there's
That's
no
where you're
question. I
going.
don't have to wait. No, just go to the teardown barn. It was like, at which point I'm racing a D stock automatic, and I had to think about what would save face because magazine guy cheating, the whole thing.
Oh,
so I
yeah.
broke out. I mean, I just went.
Right, flat
I knew.
out.
I mean, I had him covered, and it was like, screw it. We just got to go.
So now somewhere
out.
in that
So I'm
harass,
out. Yep.
so
So
they're
I'm
out,
out. Okay.
and I get my ticket and go, and the girl goes, "Congratulations, you won." I was stunned. And I just later go, "What do I do now?"
4 win lights past the finish line. I had to wait till a time slip booth to go.
Yeah, had no idea. She goes, "Park over there." Thank you. So I pull over there. I happen to see Chuck Norton. So I pull up next to him, and he goes, "Hey, congratulations, you won first round. This is great." I said, "So what happens now?" He says, "Oh, see those guys coming? They're walking this way with their little ink pen thing, the little matte wax thing to set you up, and they're going to pick out the cars that are going into the just a few times, and they're going to send you to the teardown barn." Okay. So I said, "So is there a criteria?" He goes, "Oh yeah, there's 3." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah. So first criteria is if you go way under your index."
Whoopsie.
Because I'm like 7/10 under. I said, and number 2, and he goes, "Number 2, if they've never seen you before."
Whoopsie.
Whoopso. So then I said, "So what's number 3?" He goes, "If you're a car guy, or if you're a magazine guy." I said, "We're going." Oh yeah. I didn't even finish the sentence. He goes, "You're going. Believe me." So the guy walks up, and it must have been the Flat Earth Society. He looks at my car and has no idea. Puts marks. I mean, the car looked like it had pleurisy. There were dots all over it.
on the horns.
And they just go to the teardown barn. So these guys had their car apart.
Right.
I had only had put a header on my car. I never even rejetted it, right? So I had no idea. And the rule, the thing was, if one of us wins, and if the other loses, they'll help, right?
Right.
So
Yeah,
these
no,
guys
I
came over.
offered
I've
that
got this
very
wonderful picture of you,
Yeah.
our backs to the camera. I think John Bechtel shot the photo.
Probably.
You and Pete Pastera
Yes.
and I
Yes. Yep.
humped over this deal. So
Pulling that thing apart.
So very quickly, they decide they want to see my cylinder head. So Larry Torres is running the
He's the head
teardown
of
bar.
tech at the time.
He's head of tech. So the guy comes over to him and goes, "I don't know anything about overhead cam 4 cylinders. How do we check the cam?" And Torres was so smart. He just goes. He took a piece of tape, wrapped it around the balancer, looked at 50 opening, 50 closing, and said. Took the tape, measured it out, did the distance, did the calculations for every 2 degrees, and said they're good by 5 degrees. He's good. I thought, that's impressive as hell. And then now pull the head off. Oh, man. So
and
yanked
you have
this.
to have all your own tools.
Yeah.
And you have to have all the gaskets to put it back together.
Yeah.
They supply nothing.
Which we were
It's like you must be
we
prepared.
were prepared. We
Yeah.
were at least prepared for that because the guys over at the local Dodge, Glendora Dodge, really helped us out. I don't know if they're still in business or not, but they did. So they're helping me take this thing apart. So I pull the head over and I drop it on the guy's bench, and he yanks one of the valves out. And now this has got like 25,000 miles on it, right? And apparently the valve guy's seals on 2.2s were not very good. So he pulls the intake valve, and it's only about this big around, right? It's nothing. It's a tiny little valve, and it's got this giant clump of carbon on it.
On the backside.
On the backside.
Blocking the port.
Yes. Yes.
And this guy goes into hysterics, right? I mean, he's laughing so hard, people are going, what's so funny? He literally, it was just a wooden bench, right?
Yep.
Right? He stands up on the bench, and he knows who we are, right? So he stands up on the bench and says, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to show you something. This is the intake valve out of the number 2 qualifier. And I expected to get shot, you know? And so he gets back down on the bench, and everybody goes back to whatever they're doing, you know? And then he goes, you want to knock this off? I go, no, man, that's my speed seeker. Put that back in. And then we lost second round. Yeah. So that was it. We raced a C-stock automatic 428 Cobra Jet Mustang.
Yeah.
And that guy flew by me so fast. He went, woof. I thought my car was going to do this.
Oh, yeah. You definitely picked, between a D-stock Camaro and that, you were definitely chased.
So, but it was fun. That was a lot of fun. So
Let's we're actually talking about some pretty crappy drag racing, honestly. But we have in our midst,
yes,
a champion, a winner of 2 Wallies in the same year.
The same year.
Yes, a Wally is the statue.
Quite fortunate.
Statue,
so you
super
and
gas.
Our good friend Tim Moore. You
God
guys
rest
were
his soul.
partners
Yep.
in a
Brogy Roadster.
Brogy Roadster, and you were driving. It was Tim's car.
It was Tim's car. It was my engine and transmission.
Okay.
And we show up at the Winter Nationals with 1 pass in the car.
I did not know
What
that.
year is this?
1
97?
pass?
Yeah. In 96, we went to the Fuel and Gas Championship at Bakersfield in September, and I made 1 run in the car.
Wow.
And went 9:15. No throttle stop runs, no nothing.
Right.
On a 990.
For 990, right?
Yeah.
So,
You're there.
September to fast forward Pomona, Tim puts a throttle stop on it and does all these things, and we show up and get 3 time hits and win the race.
The car once before and ran a 915.
One run.
That's right. And the object of super gas is in terms of 990, to
Run
run
990
right
on
on
the number.
990.
Well, run as close as you can and not go any quicker.
And not
you're
go any
disqualified.
faster.
Right. As you break out.
Right.
So it's best at the starting line and
Right.
closest to 990 at the finish line.
Right.
And or do, all kinds of things to make the other guy break out at the finish line,
Yes.
Which is unbelievable talent. If you've ever done that, it is an unbelievable challenge to come up to be consistent. I mean, it's a bracket racing deal, but at 990, which was so popular back then, that was a super gas.
Still is.
Super gas is such a
huge.
big deal, but to be able to be consistent and run 990 or close to it and not over and over again is unbelievably hard.
And
very difficult.
Run the number on the tree. Run the tree.
Right.
And
Right,
I
yeah.
was at I tried bracket racing twice and just got killed. But Kevin was there. We were at LACR, which is also another drag strip that no longer
It's
exists.
RIP,
We were
yes.
up there at a center line.
Yep. Firestone TNN Centerline race.
Centerline race. And Bernie Longjohn was the track owner, and Kevin pulls on first or second round a perfect light.
In my
And Bernie,
Camaro.
in his Camaro, Bernie goes crazy. Second round, he does it again.
And his daughter would bring, Bernie used to give away these really nice lapel pins that was a Christmas tree with an axe going through it. So if you got a perfect light, you've got one of the Christmas trees, right? And so she comes down with the first one, and she goes, I got another one here. I know you're going to do it again.
And you did.
And so second round, and I believe I did a third that evening also. Oh, man. 3 in one night.
Unbelievable.
So, again, there's a lot of luck in drag racing. There's a small amount of skill.
There's a little bit of skill there, and I think that you qualify, right?
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so now
now he's done, and he does it twice the same year.
and so
Isn't that
then you
amazing?
back up it again
At the World Finals.
at the World Finals.
Right.
So bookended the
That's
season.
the first and last
only
race.
time that year. that anyone did both of them. Obviously, they won 2 races, but
Yeah.
we I won't say lucked our way in, but we were able to navigate the Winter Nationals. When we came into the World Finals, we owned it.
Okay.
Reaction time and the finish line. I
Yeah.
mean, we were dialed. It was just, I don't know. I was at the SEMA show all week working for Flowmaster,
Right.
and I'm sitting
I know
there.
about that company.
Pardon me?
I know about that company.
We know a little
Yes,
bit, don't
we
we?
do. Yes,
I had
we do.
15 years of it.
I
So.
know. I had 3.
But no, we were at the SEMA show, and it's funny. That was the year that is it Gary Christensen, the guy with the 57? That was the fastest streetcar guy?
Not Gary, but yes, but fastest streetcar guy.
Yes,
Yes.
the red 57
Red
Chevy.
57 Chevy. Yeah.
And it wasn't Moran, but it was one of the other racers. They had both their cars in our booth, and so we made a poster that year. And my dad sat there in the booth and signed posters, and we made a poster roller and rolled up posters and passed them out, right? And so I'm sitting there, and it's funny because my 57 came out in Super Chevy or in something, and it came out at the show, right? And I'm looking at it, and I'm showing it to Christensen. He goes, "Does that got ladder bars in it?" I said, "Yes, it does," because it was perfectly square when it left and stuff. And I said, I'm going to the World Finals to win this weekend. He's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I'm going to go down and win the World Finals. The only person that's won 2 races in 1 year."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, okay, sure." And that was just, I had talked myself into it all week to go down there and just stay focused and do my job. you know?
Yeah.
And
So
next
cool.
week's lotto number are
No, Tim and I had a great time with that car. We ended up winning 3 national events, Sonoma in 2000. And I took the engine and sold it at that point and bought a 27 Davis Roadster, the car I have now today.
Nice. Yeah.
And we've now raced that since 2001.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to win the Sports Nationals in 13 in Vegas, and I won the Winter Nationals again in 18.
nice.
So I got to beat Steve Williams, my boss.
So one of the things I like to do is always assemble an engine with ARP bolts, and it's not just because they're sponsors, but because it really does work. And the stuff is fantastic. I never have to worry about it. Steve, you building cars too?
Yeah, actually, it's part of my baseline design plan when I'm building a car that's going to be shown or featured in a magazine. It's part of the plan to have that little bit of diamonds all over the engine bay or in the suspension.
Yeah, the stuff is beautiful. I remember a long time ago, I built the first time I ever touched it, 69 Z28. All of the water jacket holes had stripped out, and I learned about ARP studs.
So check them out at arp-bolts.com or check out their catalog. You'll find everything you're looking for.
Yeah, it was kind of quiet the rest of that day. And then he called me later in the day. "Good job, Mac." And I'm like,
Wave
So,
the flag. Wave
yeah.
the flag. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's just an amazing history of racing consistently. I mean, have you raced every year consistently?
well, definitely every year. There was a short period of time that I was rebuilding the 57 from when I ran it back in the early 80s.
Okay.
When it was Project ProGas for Super Chevy in
Right.
82 through 85. I broke an engine in 85 and it was parked for 11 years.
Wow.
And I had 2 kids and, family got in the way.
Nothing
which-
nothing new there, right?
No,
Right.
exactly.
Exactly.
And so we came back out in 96 with it
Right.
and started campaigning it hard.
Right.
And,
Does your son still race with you?
Daniel.
Daniel does.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Daniel's-
I was talking to him yesterday. He's like, "What's the next race? This is ridiculous. We need to go racing." And I'm like,
So
yeah.
a quick story. I used to come up to Flowmaster to do stories up in Northern California, and Kevin and Lisa would invite me for dinner, and I'd come and we'd have dinner and we'd go out in the living room. And Daniel was maybe 7 back then, 7 or 8 years old.
He's 31 now.
Yeah, and because he and my son Graham are the same age, and he would disappear for about 5 seconds, come running in with the practice tree, and then challenge me to a race, and we would race about 50 or 100 times, and I would win one. He would just destroy me at 7 years old. So it kind of tells you that he's been playing this game a long time, and he's really good.
It's in the
really
blood.
good.
He's
in the
definitely
blood.
better at driving than I am.
Really,
Oh, yeah.
really,
Yeah.
wow.
And
Wow.
he what I like about the youth and drag racing is they don't know all the mistakes they can make.
Right.
When you get to my age, you know how many ways you can screw it up.
There's a
And you
million
can-
ways to screw up.
there's 1,000 ways to lose and one way to win.
Yeah.
the win light's got to be on in your lane.
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
simple.
There's no, what's the secret to winning? That light's got to be
Light's
on.
got to be
I've
on.
never heard it broken down quite that simply, but
Yeah.
that was just
Oh,
just
boy.
the art of it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's impressive.
So we were talking earlier a little bit off camera, but LACR stories. So we have one that we got involved with John Boy's Camaro.
Oh, yeah. John Wilson worked for me at Flowmaster, was one of the, I got to Flowmaster in 93, right?
Okay.
And John Wilson latched himself onto me as I showed up for my interview. I want to work for you. And I'm like, who the heck are you?
Who are you?
Yeah, exactly, right?
What was he doing at Flowmaster back then?
John Wilson, he was in R&D.
Was he?
He was working
Okay.
for Lee Thompson. He was
Okay.
building prototype mufflers, things like that. But
Okay.
probably, gosh, at that point, he was 19, 20 years old.
Oh, really? Young guy.
Young
Yeah.
guy. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And
Real
so,
enthusiastic.
Yep, very enthusiastic.
Yeah.
Beyond enthusiastic. But he had an IROC Camaro with a 5-liter in it and a stick.
Yeah.
And with nitrous, and he'd street race it in Sonoma and all around and on, and had a few accidents that got him in some trouble with the gentlemen with badges on their shirts, But no, John was a good guy. Still is, obviously. He owns a FedEx line now. He's got like
Really?
32 trucks.
Really?
He's doing really well.
Wow.
He's still up
Good
there?
for
Is he
him.
still
Yep.
up in Santa Rosa?
Up in Santa Rosa.
Nice.
But no, we did a lot of cars. We did cars for General Motors through Mark McPhail.
Mark
we had a
McPhail.
contract that we did.
That's
stuff.
where the early Camaro came in.
That's where the 67
67.
Camaro did. Yes, we built the 67 Camaro as a clone Z28 with a Gen 2 small block, and so it had an LT1 in it that we put LT4 heads and made a 302 to make it a clone to the Z28.
Right.
Then we built a 97 Z28 that I did another 302 with port fuel injection on, and those were the two cars, and they went on the power tour. They were at the SEMA show and so on.
I remember.
And that's down to the 67 Camaro that our boy Jeffrey here drove.
When I was the editor of Chevy High, we were doing this thing called 0 to 100 0. So the thing was to show not just acceleration, because we're a drag racing oriented magazine, but also braking. And Bear was kind enough to bring their test material out, and the whole thing was not whoever's the fastest, but who could do 0 to 100 0. And
Cobra thing.
that was
taxed
it was
from
based
the
totally on
I
the
have
from
a
the
little
60s.
vignette. I
Yeah.
have a little vignette on that. The 0 to 100 to 0 thing that was going on and how fast they all went.
Yeah.
I remember asking Shelby how that number came up.
Uh-huh.
He goes, Miles did it with a stopwatch on the deal. It was a complete bullshit.
A fabricated
It
deal.
was a completely
Who knew?
He,
Right.
he did it on the airport, the LAX airport.
And
with
Carroll
a
Shelby's
stopwatch.
turning over in his grave right now,
No,
right?
he said that was a deal.
I'm
That
sure
was a
it did,
deal
yeah.
that Miles did on his own, and we just
Went
used
with
it.
it.
We
Used it as
just
PR, and
So
it
had-
was wonderfully
it was-
successful.
And
Yeah.
I'm sure the Shelby guys are all going to flip out over the deal, but
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
Shelby told me specifically
Really?
when I threw it out to him. So
funny.
anyway, so all
That's
right, so
funny.
you're doing it for
So
Carcraft,
we're doing
yeah.
this, and the company liability rules were such that I had to drive the car. So
Yeah.
I'm driving the cars and stuff, and John Boy has given up on winning
John
the
Boy?
event.
John Boy?
John Boy Wilson. John Boy
Okay,
Wilson.
Very good, thank you.
The car left Santa Rosa with no rear calipers.
Oh, it never had rear calipers?
No, sir. That was me.
Oh, okay.
Because-
Because you wanted 15-inch
Wanted
wheels.
15-inch wheels
and
so we
the
could
calipers.
put drag radials on the
Right, right.
Right. Told
'Cause it
them
had
to lighten
Corvette
the
brakes
car.
all the way around this
Yeah.
thing that we had
Right.
grafted on it in
Right.
'97.
So he decides he
Performance
can't win the
lightning
braking
deal.
part of it, but I want to do the 0 to 100. I want to win that, knock it down. So we put nitrous on it and says, okay, we took the rear brakes off. Now, just make it down the pass. So, and he's telling me we hit what was the shot? Like 250?
Oh, I don't know. Mark was there. I wasn't.
Oh.
And they just
Okay.
kept taking the pill and making it larger and
his
larger.
John Boy's line was "pill it till you kill it,"
Yeah.
right? So
No,
we've
and-
done 2 or 3 passes, and it's harder and harder to stop the car because all I have is front brakes. You think, well, what's
They
the
were
big deal?
13-inch California, or Corvette 1LE
But
brakes. Come
rear
on.
brakes add a lot. Try driving a car one time without them. Anyway, so he finally says, "Okay, we're on kill now. The engine probably won't survive, but just stay in it." Okay, I hit the button. The thing just goes boom, and I'm banging the gears. And I think in third gear, I heard this high pitched whine. I'm gonna go, "Uh-oh." I thought it was a transmission. So I bang forth. Nothing breaks. It's still running. So I leg it out the back end, and as soon as I went the lights, I clutched it, and the engine stopped. Uh-oh. So I kick it into neutral. Well, now, reacting to all this stuff, now I've got no time to get the car stopped. And I think it went through the lights at, I don't know, 116, 117, 180 mile an hour. And LACR didn't have the best. It was slightly uphill, and then you went off
a great
into dirt.
facility.
It was a fantastic
great
facility.
Until you hit the freeway.
Dirty.
You hit the freeway.
great.
That was right after that.
And it was like,
Didn't they used to go up on the freeway?
That was Orange County.
that was Orange County.
That was Orange
County.
County.
Where if you ended up down, you would end up on the freeway.
Yeah.
I think a few cars did.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So that was an adventure. And then John Boy sent me a picture like a week or so later. The oil pan looked like a gravel pit. It just because it was a cast piston motor, and they knew they didn't care, and it grenaded two
Mark
pistons.
was having too much fun.
He was having a great time.
So there's a little bit more backstory for we got a second.
Okay, sure.
So John and Mark wanted to hop this engine up as much as possible. Brand new LO5 or whichever long block 350 or short block 350, because we put LT4 heads on it and all these things. So I'm like, well, you can turn the pistons around, right? To take and put the offset to the opposite side. It'll be loud as heck, but it'll take friction out of it.
Right.
You can do all these things. And John's like, okay, great. Pulls it all apart, swaps everything around. Brand new short block. Puts the heads on it, puts it all in, puts it in the car. He's at his house, starts it up. Within a minute, it's got a rod knock.
Oh, no.
He didn't tighten all the rod bolts. Right? So now it's like 8 hours before they have to leave for Palmdale. And I go look on the rack, and I'm looking around. I'm like, take that one. And they had to pull that one down.
Of your R&D engines?
No, it was one of GM's.
Oh, okay,
But
okay.
there was a wall of engines,
oh, boy.
right?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, take that one.
Take that one.
Mark's like, "Ah," and I'm like, you guys want to go do this? You know, I'm staying home. You guys are idiots.
You guys are idiots.
That one has tight rod.
Yeah. And so they just put the heads on it and, slid the cam in it and
Okay.
so on and put it in the car.
That's, I didn't hear that. I never
Oh,
heard
no.
that part of the story either.
That's,
so. So then, because we're talking about early Camaros, let's segue to the crate engine shootout that we did later,
good
because
Lord.
it was fun, but it was fun. It was a good time.
it was a great time.
So Hot Rod, I was the editor of Hot Rod at the time. We came up. Chevrolet had come out with the ZZZ engine.
The early, the ZZZ.
The
yes.
ZZZ,
Right.
the 350, and 345 horsepower, if I recall. And then Ford came out a year or so later, and I know what they did. They had a little meeting, and they said, we don't, a 351 Windsor, we don't care how much it makes as long as it makes more than that Chevy, that damn Chevrolet, right? So they come out with it. Why, this time Chrysler's third to the party.
Yep.
So, but they have the advantage of knowing what the other two guys are doing, so they bring a motor that makes even more power.
Right. The
So then
360.
we come up with the idea, let's do a crate engine shootout, and originally it was going to be a dyno test. I was like, well, that's no fun because we already know what the horsepower numbers are. Let's put them in a car and actually prove it. It's like, okay. So Kevin volunteers, or was
On the Chevrolet camp.
on a volunteered.
Well, that's fine. The Chevrolet camp.
Yeah, the Chevrolet camp in an early Camaro, and then Chris Kaufman with a Mustang with a 351.
Yep.
And then the Chrysler guys
Dick
were
Landy.
Dick Landy.
Yep.
And
Never
they
heard of him.
Yeah,
never.
Maybe you've heard of this guy, right? I mean, very well known. And Chrysler said, "Do what you got to do, but you better beat those guys." Right.
Yep.
And so we all show up at LACR. We rent the whole facility, and it was a lot of fun. And you guys were outgunned,
Well,
I mean, and
there was a couple caveats that I tried to make it at least fair. Right. You had to run on pump gas. It's like those guys are going to show up on race gas, right?
Yeah.
So when you got there, you had to drain your fuel tank.
drain your fuel tank,
And
we
here's
supplied
91
the fuel.
Chevron, or at the time 92.
No, okay.
Hold on,
Was it
It was
92
92
back then? Wow.
But anyway, put your 92 octane Chevron in it, right? And so on. Well, Landy had been going up there. I think it's Mike Landy's his son.
Yeah.
Right. Was driving the car.
Okay.
And they were at Palmdale, and we had been up there testing, and Kaufman had been up there testing. This was all weeks before,
Right. Everybody's covering their bases.
And they both had automatic transmissions with loose converters.
Right.
And I had a Super T10 in the Camaro, rowing the gears, right? And so that was our downfall to some extent. But no, we had a blast. It was really tight until the very end.
Yeah.
And it was basically the track was so bad that everybody was spinning.
Right.
And I talked Bernie into putting a little VHT down.
Yeah.
And then the one hero run that I had it all set up, I had taken the belt off of it. I had done all this stuff to it to try to make it
all but drain the oil out of the engine.
Exactly, yeah, right. Because we still wanted that engine because the guy that loaned us his 69 Camaro, Phil Cole, who owned the body shop, it was a beautiful 69 Camaro that had been fully restored.
Yeah.
And we're out there just wailing the hell out of this
Beating
car.
the snot out of it.
It was the same parking lot that Tim Moore had his shop, which was McClelland Automotive before Tim bought it from me.
Right.
And so he had to get a car back. And that was the whole thing. If you let us beat on your car, you can have this engine, you can have everything when we're done. Well, I go out there, the track's all prepped, everything okay. I'm going for the hero run, and I bogged the car on the last run of the day. It had gotten too hot at Palmdale, and there was no way I was going to outrun those guys.
The altitude was like 7,500 feet.
Yeah,
it
at
was
Palmdale.
crazy. Yeah.
But years later, I think I finally told you that we had ported the cylinder heads. We had taken the thing apart, but the cam was so mild. You put a glass of water on the air cleaner because it would idle. The Chevrolet engine was very docile compared to the Chrysler and compared to the Mustang or the Ford.
The cam a little bit too?
No. The cam
So
was
the
a
cam was good,
standard
but the heads
ZZ3 cam.
The heads were tuned up a little.
But yeah, Rodney ported the heads.
And probably the Chrysler guys.
Oh, I'm sure they touched
They
it.
tweaked it a little
They
bit.
touched it, yeah.
Because Kaufman and I got involved with another project later on.
And I worked for Chris for 2 years, so we speak no more, right?
Right. Real quickly, it was a deal where it was Ford versus. It was supposed to be all three engines, horsepower shootout. I couldn't convince them to do area under the curve because they didn't think they were competent for that. So it came down to Chrysler. The guy that was involved with the Chrysler engine bailed out on it when he realized he couldn't because we had a monetary restriction. So the deal was Kaufman says we can build a 351, we'll get these iron heads, and then we'll show you how to port them. Okay. Rob Canan built the Chevy engine, took it up to Flowmaster, and knocked a rod bearing out of it. And that's when he took it to Joe Sherman.
It was the only engine. Magazine engine that I put on my dyno. We had an 871 tower, right?
Yeah.
With the heat exchanger in the tower, and it pushed metal through the whole freaking dyno, right? From that point on, nope. Spin on filter, no magazine guy gets to hook up to the dyno, right?
Underscore magazine guy. So we'd heard that he had hurt the motor, but I didn't know he went to Joe Sherman. I found this out later. But Kaufman's helping me out with this thing. So the deal is I'm supposed to port the heads, right? I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. And then I had to go on the road. So I'm flying back. I go, okay, Chris, I'm going to be back in town tomorrow. I'll come down and do the heads. He goes, they're already done. And I went, I was supposed to do them because we farm it out. He goes, you lie and I'll swear to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Great Chris Kaufman line.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay. So I've got these ported heads and I had spec'd the camshaft. Well, I didn't know I was running up against Joe Sherman until Rob says, well, Joe kind of helped me out a little bit here. And it's like, what? I'm running against Joe Sherman. So we're out at Kenny Duttweiler's and we run his engine first. Right? And it takes basically all day. It won't hold a load below 3,500. It's got such a camshaft and it must have had like 102 centers on it. I mean, it had a monster exhaust port or exhaust lobe on it, what it turned out to be. Turned out that we had spec'd virtually the exact same intake lobe, but he had like another 15 degrees of exhaust duration that I didn't have. So Kenny pulls this thing. And Rob's all excited, and he leaves. So Kenny looks at me. Well, we'd already run my engine, so we knew what it was going to run on his dyno. Right. And he looks at me and goes, you're like 50 short.
Not just a few.
Not just a few.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't quite that much, but it was a bunch, right? And I'm going, what are we going to do? And he goes, well, we just, let's shave the heads like 40,000. So we mill the heads. Now the pistons are just all but touching. So we had to retard the cam. It's like, well, we're looking for peak horsepower.
Right.
That's okay. Yeah. So we screwed it all back together, and I think he still beat me by like 15 or 20, something like that. It was a drubbing. And then I said, well, let's look at the specs. And then I saw the exhaust lobe, and it was like, okay. So, that was fun too. That was a lot of fun too.
On that crate motor deal between the Chrysler.
The Chrysler guys.
The Chrysler one.
Yeah.
I think we were all ended up. I went like 12 teens. Somewhere there at about like 111.
So think about that.
Yeah.
A ZZ crate engine going
ZZ3.
12, ZZ3 going 12
and
teens.
an all steel.
Yeah, this was
good.
not a lightweight, not a super gas car. Or anything like that. It was a full-on street car.
At Palmdale.
Right. So which just shows you
track.
it's like stock
To
eliminator.
live, work, and shop.
Yeah.
right. But we're talking about the dyno stuff. We had that. There was another discussion that we were talking about. Kevin brought it up with regards to something that happened down in Huntington Beach with regards to an engine that made a lot more horsepower than you guys originally calculated.
I don't remember this
remember.
at all.
We need a story.
Really?
No.
We need a story.
So yes. So tell us.
Because we talk about dynos all
Set
the
the
time.
Wayback Machine, Mister.
Mr. Wizard.
Dynos can be. This is always the routine. We talk about dynos can be made to create certain horsepowers depending on.
Well, there's
the
engine
operator.
builders.
Yes, engine
And then
builders.
there's test cells.
Simple enough.
Okay.
Simple enough.
And people
And
that
you know
sell
about,
engines.
and you know about both of those.
And,
Right.
and I'm, being fair, I'm not naming any names at all.
Hey.
But Jeff and I met back at Edelbrock in the mid 80s.
Yeah.
I worked for Jim McFarland, my mentor at the time, for many years.
Yep.
And
My mentor, too.
Was
Sure. Yeah.
Jeff was always there because Jim would share his knowledge and would teach anybody that would listen, and Jeff would support anybody.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we had sat there and got to know each other there. Well, a group of us left Edelbrock in 1988. And in the early 89 area around there, we opened up McFarland Incorporated down in Torrance, which was really only a mile and a half from Edelbrock.
right around the
very
corner.
close.
Right around the corner.
Yeah. It was.
And so we were a beta test site for Superflow, so we had some really nice test equipment.
Right, which is a
And-
dynamometer. Just
Yes,
for background,
yes.
Superflow dynos.
Yep. And so we took and we would take and Jim was selling the place as the UL laboratory for the aftermarket. Yeah. We had no dog in the fight.
Right.
And we would test all these different things. We test split fire spark plugs. NGK paid us to do a full analysis and engine cylinder pressure analysis on split fire spark plugs.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, you guys have way better test equipment than we do. And he goes, yes, but we can't come out and say they're junk. You have to come out and say they're junk. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Yeah. So
What are you
they
saying?
sent me
What
like
are you saying?
this
Yeah,
report of 300 pages that
Right.
they had from NGK of how those spark plugs performed, right? So that's a whole nother story. Yeah.
Right.
So Jeff comes to the shop one day down in Torrance. He comes over and we had built, Rod Sokolowski and I had built this small block mule engine for
Right.
McFarland to test all kinds of engines on, right?
Right.
And it was a hydraulic flat tappet cam. It was the L98 aluminum heads that Rodney had ported.
Right.
Like 10 to 1, it was an LT1 short block. And we just built a really good dyno engine. And it made 400 horse, and it made like almost 400 pound-feet of torque. It was a nice running,
good.
just well-mannered engine.
Sure.
For 89. That was
Yeah.
pretty decent number.
Absolutely. 400 was a good number.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So Jeff comes rolling in and he hands me these dyno sheets and he goes, Kevin, this thing makes a lot of power. And I look and it was like 440 horsepower corrected out of a 350. And I'm like looking at the numbers and I'm looking at the airflow and I'm like, something's not adding up. And I slide the page over and I looked at the observed numbers and it's like 390 horse observed. It had 50 horsepower
50
correction
horsepower
of correction factor.
Yikes.
Right?
The best is usually what, 6?
Well, it matters how bad the
how
air
bad
is,
the
right?
air
if
is.
you're up at Denver, right,
Right.
it's going to have a
It's
ton
gonna
of
have a big
correction,
correction.
right?
Right.
But if you're at sea level,
It's hard
right,
to do.
which the last time I checked, Huntington Beach is
Right
really
there,
close,
right
right?
there, real
And
close.
Torrance we had, the barometer, worst case, the barometer would get like 2990,
Yeah.
was the worst there.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd see 30.3, 30.35 when there were Santa Ana days, right?
And at 30.3, if the temperature is halfway decent,
Oh, you're making
you'll make a
big
pull,
power.
and you will pull.
You'll take power away.
Correction will take power away
Because it corrects back to 29.92,
29.9 and
60-degree dry air. That's the standard correction.
the
Say that again, just so we catch that.
29.92, 60-degree dry air,
Fair
no
enough.
humidity, zero
Fair enough.
humidity. That's
That's
what they
what
would
we're-
correct
that's what
back
we're
for the.
correcting to.
That's what you would
standard
correct too.
horsepower
Right.
correction factor.
Correct.
Right. It's
Yeah.
not the current one.
SAE
Yeah.
is 5% worse than that.
Right.
Society of Automotive Engineers.
Yes, right.
Okay.
And that's what the auto manufacturers test to.
Right.
Yes.
It to a minimum. So anyway,
Got it.
Jeff shows me these dyno sheets. I'm perusing them, looking at them, and I look and the barometer is 2860 or 2850. And I hand the sheet back to Jeff and I said, did a hurricane go over Huntington Beach on this date? And he's going, what? And I said, and that's the first time Jeff learned about correction factors
Right.
and how to bust engine builders
Yep.
that were sending
Oh,
these
boy.
glory dyno sheets into the magazine, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was
And I had a Midwest company try and and then I actually went out to their facility and they were testing by running the motor at the top and pulling it down and using inertia to make more power. I said, you can't do that.
Right.
Sure we can.
Yeah.
Well, you can do it. It's
Right.
not the way anybody else does it,
Right.
and you've got inertia working for you. It's like running downhill. No, it isn't.
But these are the sneaky tricks that happen with dyno operators. They can figure out how to make more power to please certain customers.
Sure.
And especially with magazine situations, if you're going to be able to tout something as being the best, I mean, if you're talking about a 60, if it was 40, the correction factor was 440, but the actual observed was 390.
390.
50
50 horsepower, which is
50
huge.
That's an incredible amount of difference. So
And with ARP, it's not just a lot of intake manifolds, studs for heads, but they also have a humongous selection of American and metric that we use all throughout the car, even large bolts that we use on the suspension components, because you want that same strength, that same durability and reliability, plus the beautiful looks.
And the stuff outside the catalog.
Right, they have a special order program where if you're a builder and you need some special stuff made, they can do that for you. So it's an amazing company to work with.
So check them out at arp-bolts.com or check out their catalog. You'll find everything you're looking for.
So, 89, and I came up with this idea. I got like 25 or 30 mufflers, and I actually created a contract that I sent out to all the muffler manufacturers and said, you choose the muffler. This is our test procedure. You and I and Jim all went through it, and we'll do this test procedure, and we're not gonna. It's a shootout, but it's more than horsepower. It's horsepower. It's DBA. It's cost. It's fitment. So if you've got a giant muffler, it's not going to fit in a 67 Camaro.
Right.
So all these things, and it all has to qualify. We're not going to call out a winner. We're just going to say, here you go.
Here's the data.
Here's the data. So
by
Borla,
virtue of
everybody's
doing so,
involved.
you basically call out a winner.
Well,
It matters what your criteria
what's
is.
your
Yes,
criteria?
I
What is
understand.
your
I
criteria?
understand
Everybody's
these
going to
are
look at the peak
different
horsepower
categories.
number. So that's obviously the big
horsepower
critical one,
number would
but it's
obviously be
not
the one.
everything.
Right.
So and Hooker Headers was selling a muffler at that time. They didn't build it.
Of course not.
And so I called them and I said, can you do this? Would you like to play? And we want to play for sure. So they send us a muffler, and then we get a muffler from Dynamax. And Kevin and I are looking at all the mufflers, and I luckily took a picture of each one of them and put it in the story. This was like a 10 or 12 page story in the magazine. It was huge. Oh, it was a monster.
Marlin helped you.
It was a Marlin-esque.
It was a Marlin-esque.
It was a Marlin Davis-esque story. I went down the rabbit hole way too deep. Marlin was hot rod for
40 years.
Great.
Yes.
Awesome
I started
rider.
in 80.
Fantastic.
I think it was
Best technical rider I know.
78.
Yes.
Yes.
We start doing the testing, and we're looking at Kevin and I are looking at the mufflers, and we realized that, because the Dynamax muffler had this little parabolic reflector on the back side of it, and those.
Turbo.
The Super Turbo, and those engineers had told me that the full offset muffler was the hot ticket. It was worth not even a horsepower, but it was measurable. And so we open up the box from Hooker, and the muffler is a semi-offset. So it's offset on one side and a center exit with the parabolic reflector on there. And we're looking, well, this will be fun to see if we see a difference. So we test all these mufflers, and sure enough, we see a difference. Published the story.
Back up. We shared all the results with the manufacturers before it was published.
Yes.
Didn't-
Without comparison.
No
just
comparison,
their number.
just what their number was.
Right.
Here's-
And then gave them the option of pulling out if they thought it was embarrassing.
Yep.
And I don't think anybody did.
No.
The Super Trap people were mad.
Oh, slightly.
Because they were at the bottom of the horsepower number. Anyway,
Supertrap was a different kind of muffler.
it was a
It's
completely
more of
different
a
muffler,
series of
and
plates.
they should have given us
Correct.
100 reflector plates,
Right.
and it wouldn't have been as
And
restricted.
it had like 9.
Yeah, it was not very many.
Nine's not
so
enough.
we published the numbers, and there's a slight differential between the muffler that Hooker sent us and the one from Dynamax. And then it wasn't even a week. This is back before electronics, so I get this letter from Hooker that says, you guys are idiots. And he sent the letter to Mr. Peterson, Mr. Wangro, the president of the company, my boss's boss, my boss. I mean,
Who's your
copied
boss at that
the
time?
world. John Diana and then Harry Hibbler.
Yep.
And, everybody. So
Stand
I'm
back.
getting all these copies of these letters all coming in their office the same day, going stamped like WTF. You know, how are you going to respond to this? You're embarrassing the company, right? Your job is in jeopardy. And I'd already read the letter by this time. I'm reading the letter and going, oh man, he just set me up so well. So what we had decided was we knew, he didn't know that we knew. So in his letter, he says, you're such idiots that you guys don't even know that Walker builds the muffler for us. And you tested the same muffler and you got different results. See, you guys don't know what you're doing. And so I sent him a very nice, I still have the letter.
Do you?
I kept it. I'm almost going to, I'm in the process of moving. It was one of the things that I kept. I threw a lot of stuff out. That's one thing I kept. His letter and my response, which was a 1.5-page single-spaced response saying, thank you very much. But in reality, where you're saying that we embarrassing the company and the name of the magazine because we don't know what we're doing, we in fact your accusation has actually vindicated us and verified the testing. Because what you don't know that we know is that the Walker engineers told us this was going to happen. They know something you don't even know about the product you're selling. Shame on you. So, but it was very well, I was professional. I didn't get all mad. I didn't attack him. And I said, and what I didn't say was shame on you for ratting us on us because in your contract it says no sniveling. No sniveling.
No
that was no
Right.
whiners. You
Yep.
can't complain about this. If you don't like the results,
can
don't play.
Right.
And
so what you're saying
and
basically is that muffler, the two mufflers that should have, according to Walker, should have been the same.
no, they weren't. They weren't the
Right,
same.
but no,
But they
the
weren't.
design was
But
different.
they
According
weren't.
to Hooker,
And
he
he
thought
did-
they would be
right.
the same.
Because he didn't know. What vindicated me also
Right.
was we ran pictures of each muffler, and you could see it right there. They weren't the same muffler.
Right.
So it was vindication, which was nice, but at the same time, it was like this all happened behind the scenes. But
Right.
but the bad part is that, and I don't know if management even bothered to read it. They probably just went, okay, fine.
Yeah,
not.
you got him off our back.
But
Yeah.
what was cool was that word got out through the industry, and it was like, well, they're actually know what they're doing,
Right.
and that was a lot of fun. That was the best part about it, because that's what we were trying to do. We were
Exactly.
trying to show, look,
So which
we're not
one-
just
For the
out there
readership,
hatcheting
right?
stuff.
Exactly. So
we're
they-
trying to do something for the readers.
Right.
Yeah.
So which muffler?
And it was a lot of fun. In fact, we were so hard at it with your big water reservoir.
Oh, yeah.
we had to stop
And drain it and refill it.
and refill it.
Yeah.
It was like
2,500-gallon water tank.
Wow.
from Southern California. It was like.
We did that a bunch in Northern California with
Did you?
Mark.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, boy.
He
'Cause
would
doing
just
durability
beat us,
testing?
Beat
Yeah.
us mercilessly.
So-
we would wear those things out.
Which muffler was the best horsepower?
The Borla.
The Borla was the highest
Borla was
horsepower,
the highest
and it
horsepower.
was
By-
also the loudest.
Yeah.
because
By
it was
how much?
essentially a race muffler.
It was only like 3.
Yeah.
The
So in
spread.
terms of the difference, the correction,
and then
plus or minus.
one of the mufflers that I loved was the Thrush truck muffler, which
Right.
was this
Yeah.
giant. And you look at this thing
Sure.
and going, this is something you'd buy at Kmart.
Right.
And
Right.
and man, I mean, it was right there in power.
Yeah.
It was quiet. I mean, it did, and it cost like back then $17.
Yes,
they
it was
don't,
really-
they don't
And,
handle
and
backfires very
I
well.
said, look, this won't fit under a 67 Camaro,
No.
but
But-
it'll fit on an early Chevelle
Right,
or
or your truck.
or your truck.
Right.
And
Was it like
and,
a 70 series muffler?
and it gives you everything.
Was it like a 70 series muffler?
Well, no.
No,
this
this was a Thrush. It was just a
the
regular.
Thrush was a round, crimped type
Yes.
muffler.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just had louvers inside. It was nothing trick.
Yeah.
But for $17.
Yeah,
Right?
it was a killer. It was a killer.
Right.
So I thought, when people ask me, one of the stories you're the proudest of, that was one of them because it was enormously difficult to do. I spent days down there,
Yeah.
just you
yeah.
and Jim and I, just planning this whole thing, trying to anticipate every hiccup and every error that would make. And unfortunately now, that's all gone, which is really kind of sad. But I think we really set the bar, and
testing,
after that, it was really hard to duplicate that. And how do you go from there? How do you top yourself?
Yeah.
And people say, you're going to do this again? It's like, no.
Oh, that was crazy.
It was
Yeah.
crazy. I'm never doing that again. So, yeah. But that was a lot of fun. We
was.
spent days on the dyno. And it was a big block Chevy, wasn't it? I thought it was.
I honestly, I didn't know if it was the 350 or if it was a 454.
I think
it was the 454.
It was the 454.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because and we re-verified baselines
every
all
time.
throughout
Every
the
time.
Yeah.
Rebased every time before we
So
ran the
a
test.
gazillion pulls on the poor motor, and luckily, and to your credit, running the test procedures the way they have to be, they were dead nuts on, and so we can say, look, here's all the data. I had reams of dyno sheets.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing is through test procedure, back to that comment, you'll hear from Superflow or a lot of different test facilities that, plus or minus 1%, 1% repeatability is expected somewhere in that range. Between that dyno working it there in Torrance and then taking it to Flowmaster and refining it there, we were at about 0.3 was our repeatability.
0.3.
Yeah.
So at 400 horsepower, that's like 1.2. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
And then when you do 3 tests and throw out the high and the low, you had a mean average that was a
Yeah.
really good number.
Yeah.
Right? So we would always run at least 3 tests on every part change.
Yeah.
You know? And my guys hated me. They're like, "You're nuts." And I'm like, "No, I'm a masochist." Right? You got to know the truth.
This way.
Yeah,
You have
right.
to do it this way.
And you got to do it, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that how you do it at K&N these days? Because obviously we have not even spoken about what you're doing currently.
Make sure to give you a little spiff.
Well, that's
right.
How long
fine.
have you been there now?
13 years.
Wow.
Wow.
13 years. Yep. Time flies when you're having fun.
That is
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
That's a
But
lot. And
no,
what do you do at K&N?
I'm responsible for all the OEM business that we do, the original equipment manufacturers. We do a lot of work. Our largest customer is Toyota, General Motors, Chrysler. But no, I've been doing that for 13 years, grown the business substantially. And now I'm really involved heavily in operations. We opened a facility in Grand Prairie, Texas, a 500,000 square foot shop there about a year and a half ago. And so a lot of our filter operations went to Grand Prairie, and we kept the specialty stuff in Riverside. Okay. And so the hard to build stuff.
hard to build
right?
stuff, okay,
Not
yeah.
the high volume easy. Hey, they get a lot more numbers than you do. Yeah, don't talk to me about numbers, right?
It's not about the
Right.
numbers.
They've been in Riverside. That was where they began, if I
Yes,
remember
on Main
correctly.
Street. It was in,
What year was
in
that?
69.
69.
69.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
it was
right.
our 50th anniversary 2 years ago.
Wow. Very impressive.
So
Nice.
no, we're doing great. I mean, and Canon Next 50 is what we're going on now. Is what's the next 50 years?
Right.
Canon filtration is more the theme, and we're going industrial. There's still the performance. Don't get me wrong. We're not walking away from any of that.
Right.
But no, the industrial side is definitely our focus right now.
Nice.
Excellent.
Making filters for electric cars?
We are working on hydrogen fuel cell filters.
Okay, very cool.
Right.
Yeah.
We're trying to get in with Toyota. And because all of those hydrogen fuel cells have filtration.
Is that the Mirai? Is that what that is?
That is on the Toyota side,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah,
But they're doing a lot of retrofit. They have a skunk works down in Torrance
Okay.
that they're doing for Class 9, the large trucks.
Right.
They're putting fuel cells in those vehicles and so on.
Is that the
Toyota's working on.
TRD? That's the TRD
That's
environment?
well, it's one of
Toyota
it's
Racing
not
Development?
It's not
Yeah.
the Toyota Racing Development, but
Same
their
area.
headquarters used to be just on the south side, or matters which way you're going on the 405, but
Sure.
the left side if you're going west, I guess.
Okay. yeah.
The
Fair
damn
enough.
freeway goes which
Fair enough,
direction,
yeah.
you don't know. But either way,
Right.
It's on the opposite side. It's in one of the old dealerships there, one of
Right.
the old Toyota dealerships. But, yep.
Hey, you know what, Jeff, I was talking to Kevin earlier, and you know who's a big electric car fan?
Who?
Daniel.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? And he's an engineer.
He is. He's a
engineer?
mechanical engineer.
And what
Yep.
did what did
Yeah.
he say about the Tesla that he drives?
Well, he just got his Model 3
Yeah.
about 2 months ago.
Really?
The
Right.
dual motor,
Really?
Right.
right? I mean, they deliver it. You get in
Yes,
and it
right.
goes 1150s at 113.
Man.
Right?
Yeah.
Not a wheel spin, nothing.
Yeah. No. Just
It's the most odd feeling I have ever. I mean, I've driven so many performance cars through my life, right?
Right.
You stand on the throttle, it plants you in the seat, and it's decelerating from the time you hit the throttle. That's the feeling you get. Because it does. You expect it to shift gears. You expect
Yeah.
it,
All
right?
these peaks
Right,
and
right.
valleys.
But it
and
goes
just,
like this.
It just
and it decays to 113 miles an hour.
Right.
in the quarter mile
Oh yeah,
at 1170.
1150
1150.
off the showroom. Well, the Plaid's now going 930s.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's into it.
Yeah. and
He's
we-
into it. Well,
Okay.
And in his job, he works for NH Research.
Okay.
And they have patented test equipment for testing electrical grids, battery testing, motor testing. So it's not just for electric vehicles.
Okay.
It's all the way he sells to companies that are doing it for airplanes, electric airplanes.
Wow, yeah.
Right,
I've
and the
started-
military
starting
and
to
so
read about
on.
that.
So,
yeah.
but no, he told me yesterday, we were talking, and he goes, I don't think I'll ever buy another gas car.
Wow.
There you
Now-
go. with all the bashing that we do here, we do get into
He
it.
goes, the driving experience.
Yes.
He goes, I love the driving experience. Now,
Yeah.
he has his RX-7
Right.
with his LS2
With an
in it.
LS2 in it.
Yeah, exactly. That's
He's got
making
his toy to play
right,
with,
exactly.
yeah. Right.
That's making 580 at the crank and gone 130 at Fontana driving off the starting line.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
on road race tires.
We should have Daniel on.
Yeah,
I think it's
to
important that
talk
we
about
bring-
electric cars.
Yes.
If you want a factual, true, honest,
We do.
What?
We do.
That's really good.
I think we need
should
to.
definitely do that.
That's
that would
right.
be a,
he
that
would
would
love
be a
to.
hoot.
right.
Yeah.
He'd love to come and
So,
school you guys.
after
So
that, we'll bring your
we've
wife
run out of
and
time,
his,
but
yeah,
you know,
there you go.
we got it. You have to come back because there's probably about 8 more ideas. that are on
there
here
are a
that we didn't
few.
get a
There's
chance
a
to
Blue
talk
Flame
about.
special.
Well,
which
it
will
said
hold
2
on.
hours and 19 minutes. I left Riverside at 3:15, and I got here in 2 hours 6. So I was really lucky with traffic.
And what are you driving?
A 2016 Honda Fit. Come on,
Really?
There
Yes.
we go.
Really?
Are you kidding me? And I'm going 80, 85, and it says 37,
37 miles a gallon.
on the
Well, there you
dash.
go.
Don't
There
you
you
have
go.
relatives who
What is
drive
it gonna be?
Fits?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, a soon-to-be ex-wife.
People sit there and go, "You drive race cars?" I said, "Yes, but this gets me back and forth to work."
Yes,
right?
exactly.
There
And you
you
don't
go.
screw with it. We
There
just
you go.
drive the
Right.
wheels off it,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I
This-
can't
this-
thank you guys for having me.
No, this
enough.
no,
you know.
please, yeah, and we
Glad it
got
worked
to
out.
come back because there's got to be 10 more
it's-
stories.
Yes.
We could probably just do a whole story just with Tim, stuff with Tim.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
adventures with Tim, our
beer
friend,
truck.
You bet.
the beer truck.
Too much fun.
Anyway,
So yes, thanks for coming along with us. This has been a fantastic ride. I get to hang out with my friends here and talk about cars. It doesn't get any better than this. So stick with us. Go to arp-bolts.com, and our friends at ARP help us put this whole thing together. And stick with us, and we'll do this again.